So not that long ago, Keller released a blog post about 66, giving us a bit of insight about how they look at the format, which I thought that was a really interesting, good long read. But he's ignoring a lot of problems, since he mentions all the shifts Overwatch has had in its format over the years, which something I'm surprised he does is he spends a lot of time talking about the no limit stage of Overwatch, which I see as a bit questionable, but I get why he wants to cover the history of it. And of course he goes on top of into the open queue format, where only one person could pick one hero on a team, which was a format we actually had for a while, like 3 years. And then he goes into the fact that after that we went into role queue, which created some issues, mainly just with queue times, but I also think that's kind of ignoring a lot of the history with role queue, because when role queue came out, who came out? Well, it was Sigma. And Sigma created Double Shield, and then they didn't do anything about Double Shield for months, maybe a year. I honestly forgot. but that doesn't matter. Just the context of that, when we went into role queue, tank was just kind of a shield bot in a lot of ways, which of course that isn't really going to be the gameplay most want to engage with. And I think the queue times really showed that people just didn't really want to bother with it. And it's really hard to blame anyone, because it's both not really that interesting to play and also not that interesting to fight. But then, you know where I'm gonna go to now. Queue times were doing pretty badly, and people didn't really like playing tank, which, you know, to current Overwatch, that sounds kind of familiar. So, one of the big fixes it looks like they did was that they tried to go into 5v5 with only one tank. But before that, they did an experiment, which was the 3-2-1 experiment, which was 3 DPS, 2 supports, and 1 tank. That experiment actually tried to make the tanks tankier. Or a way to describe it is that they tried to make most of the tanks fill the same role that a Reinhardt would, even though that isn't really the tank gameplay most want to engage with. Which is why I'm assuming leading into Overwatch 2 and 5v5, they tried to make the tanks more offensive focused, or as it was explained, play more like Roadhog, because people like playing the FPS bit, even while playing tank. Well, of course, that was their goal leading into Overwatch 2, until recently, where they just stopped doing that, and they were like, wait, no, we're gonna make the tanks tankier, and also make it hard for them to kill the enemies. But that's going off in a quick tangent quickly. But yeah, that should probably be our big focus, the queue times. As Keller showed with his blog post, when they went into 5v5, queue times for the DPS role improved significantly. And to me, that's great, because it really matters that people can get games in a decent time. But I think that's ignoring the fact of how they changed some tanks into Overwatch 2. Again, as I mentioned earlier, one of the design goals was to make more of the tanks closer to a hero like Roadhog. Which to me just means that they want the way that you get value as a tank to be more about being this big bruiser rather than this wall. Which in the beta periods and early seasons of Overwatch, people really seem to attach to this playstyle. Because it is more fun to play as a tank that's engaging the enemies than just standing there as a wall. Rather than what we're dealing with right now, which is like oh well, I guess he has defensive ability up, I'm just waiting here. But why did tanks become walls again? And when did it really start happening? Which specifically with Overwatch 2, I know exactly the time that tanks started to feel way worse. And it starts with an S and ends with a 9. That's right, Season 9, which did a few weird things to Overwatch. And let's put our focus on what I see as the 2 main issues that this season created. The increase in HP across the entire game, and the DPS passive. So, let's begin with the health increase. Why did this happen? Well, for what we've been told, it happened because they want to increase the hitbox sizes in the game. Which I can see the idea behind that, but it creates an issue to me, which I think it jeopardizes a lot of heroes' identity and game feel. And one of the biggest examples we're having right now, at least from what I'm seeing, is Junkrat. So, before Season 9, Junkrat had his mine combo, as it's called. Which the mine had 2 combos, which was landing a shot with your primary fire and then using the mine to hopefully instantly burst the enemies, or you would combo the mine with your trap damage to instantly kill the enemies. Which I'm also gonna preface, this is something Junkrat has done for like 8 years now, so it's really core to his character he can do this. But let's see how those 2 combos work today. Oh, Oh, they're gone. Because health has been increased. Oh no. So, what happened to Junkrat's hero identity? It's just gone. He just can't do the thing. And he's been doing this thing for like 8 years. And Junkrat isn't the only example to me. It's also just ties to a general issue I'm noticing. So again, they increased the health, at least as they said, because they wanted to increase the hitbox size, right? That does mean every time you hit an enemy, you get less reward for it, because they technically have more health left. But it also creates the issue that now heroes can actually be healed through some damage combos, which before would secure a kill, which has in turn just made a lot of heroes feel worse, because the time to kill is just worse now. Because I can't really preface it enough, this old time to kill, we had it for like 8 years, and I notice it's finally starting to catch up to people that, hey, Overwatch is feeling worse, and I can't describe how. And I'm just like, well, it feels worse because they actually made it feel worse. Like, look, good job, you shot this guy twice. It should have killed him, but it didn't, because I guess they just don't feel like it should reward you anymore. So in turn, you feel less rewarded, which I'm probably repeating myself, that just kinda sucks. And it's just being kind of ignored that this is happening. For what, like 5 months now? At least when recording this? And instead of seeing this as the issue, we're blaming the format, which I'm gonna preface this right now. I played the 6v6 community mode. It's great. I love it. And it reverts most heroes to their old time to kill, which is great. It's so fun fighting heroes and it's like, oh, I shot this guy well twice and he's just dead. Compared to the live game where it's like, oh, I shot this guy great like I'm supposed to and he's not dead. Then I look at DPS passive and I'm like, oh, this is how they want to fix it. Except it really doesn't. It's just kind of made fighting DPS less intuitive. Also, it's just a really boring passive. Because they're really scared to give DPS a passive that actually is interesting. Like, I don't know, the beta 1 speed passive? That was pretty fun. People seem to enjoy the first beta because it was so fast and interesting, rather than this slow slog with so much health to shoot through. But this isn't the only passive I'm going to talk about, because we got more with the new tank passive they added to try and fix this, which was the headshot passive for the tank. So headshotting a tank is 25% less effective, which I get what they wanted out of this. Tanks were exploding, but I don't really think adding this tank passive was it, because now the tank is really unintuitive to fight, and now the role has like 3 passives. And then to me, it's like, well, at that point we gotta look at ourselves and say, wait, isn't it bad that post season 9 forced us to give tank an extra passive? Because they really didn't need one before this. But then the next fix, which is even weirder, was to buff the tank hero's tankiness, which goes against basically everything that Overwatch 2 said to do with the tanks. Because people's issue before this was that tanks were too tanky and too boring and slow. And that's what they buffed for most of the tanks. Which I just question, it's like, did they forget that that's what people didn't like? And it's kind of starting to show that like, oh, people are getting frustrated by this, because of course they are. But this is all just to preface that I kind of fear that 5v5 isn't a lost cause because 5v5 was bad, but it's become a lost cause since all the changes after season 9 has really been hampering with the game feel of playing basically most heroes. And changing time to kill so much has really made a lot of heroes lose their identity, which to me, a lot of DPS identity was the, oh wow, look at this big moment I have killing the enemies, which just doesn't exist anymore. Because now when you try to do it, they just survive, which will just never feel good in a game like this. I would again compare it to Paladins, but at least Paladin seems to have a game direction for what they want the heroes to feel like. While like Overwatch seems to just have sacrificed a bunch of heroes' identity for the sake of quote unquote mixing things up. Which then makes me go back to the fact that, oh yeah, I kinda get why people want to go back to 66 now. It had the old time to kill, and oh look, you want shooting in a tank that is just a retextured wall. But hey, that's just my quick little rant about everything going on, because I think it's a bit worrying seeing Keller's blog post focus on so much random stuff rather than, to me, what I see as a very core issue that's happening right now. But who knows, maybe the 66 experiment is really interesting and fun, or they just forget to change the time to kill and it still is bad. We'll see which one happens, but hey, if you want to find me, I'm probably playing the community mode, because I just want to kill enemies within a reasonable time. Since to me, that just feels good, and that's just what Overwatch has been for the past 8 years now. Also, I don't know where to fit this in, but it's just an idea I had. People really enjoy this community mode, right? I think they really need to add a system called verified modes. So game modes have this little check mark that, oh, you're playing this game mode. Let's let you earn EXP and challenges. Which I think is just for the best, so people can enjoy Overwatch in different ways that aren't just the core balance. Because I think it's great to allow people to play these modes that feel like they understand Overwatch's core and what makes it fun. And I see no harm in allowing people to do stuff like the battle pass through that. But anyway, that's it for me for now. Have a good one, everyone.